Russia's recent announcement about updating its nuclear program amid what it describes as colossal threats from the West has reignited global debates about security, deterrence, and the future of arms control. This move reflects the shifting geopolitical landscape in which Moscow perceives itself increasingly cornered by Western military alliances, sanctions, and what it calls an aggressive expansion of NATO. The statement is not just a technical declaration about weapons modernization but a political signal meant to reaffirm Russia's position as a nuclear superpower in an era of heightened confrontation. The backdrop of this development is the ongoing war in Ukraine, where Russia has faced strong resistance backed by Western military aid, intelligence, and financial support. Moscow argues that NATO's direct involvement in providing weapons systems, training, and logistical support to Kyiv effectively makes the alliance a participant in the conflict. Russian officials frame this as an existential threat, claiming that Western powers are attempting to weaken or even dismantle Russia as a state. In this context, nuclear modernization is presented not merely as an option but as a necessity to ensure national survival and to maintain strategic balance with the West. The modernization program is expected to focus on both strategic and tactical nuclear capabilities. Strategic systems such as intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and long-range bombers remain the backbone of Russia's deterrence posture. Over the past decade, Moscow has already deployed new systems like the RS-28 Sarmat missile, known in the West as Satan-2, which is capable of carrying multiple warheads and is designed to penetrate advanced missile defense systems. Other innovations include hypersonic glide vehicles such as the Avangard, which travel at extraordinary speeds and can maneuver unpredictably, making them extremely difficult to intercept. By emphasizing further upgrades, Russia seeks to ensure that its deterrent remains credible against any technological advancements in Western missile defense. Alongside strategic forces, Russia has also underscored the importance of tactical nuclear weapons, which are designed for use on the battlefield rather than for global annihilation. Western analysts estimate that Russia possesses the largest arsenal of tactical nuclear weapons in the world, ranging from short-range missiles to artillery shells and air-dropped bombs. By highlighting this capability, Moscow signals to NATO that any conventional escalation in Europe could quickly cross the nuclear threshold. This doctrine of escalate to de-escalate, though controversial, is meant to deter the alliance from deeper military involvement near Russian borders. The political dimension of Russia's announcement cannot be ignored. By publicly framing nuclear modernization as a response to Western hostility, Moscow reinforces its narrative that it is acting defensively rather than aggressively. This narrative serves both domestic and international purposes. Domestically, it rallies public support around the government by portraying Russia as a besieged fortress resisting external enemies. Internationally, it attempts to sow doubt among Western populations about the wisdom of their government's confrontational policies, especially in Europe where memories of the Cold War nuclear standoff remain vivid. The timing of this announcement also coincides with the erosion of arms control treaties that once provided a framework for limiting nuclear risks. Agreements such as the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty and the Open Skies Treaty have collapsed in recent years, with both Moscow and Washington accusing each other of violations. Even the New START Treaty, the last remaining arms control pact between the United States and Russia, is set to expire in 2026 with no clear pathway to renewal. In this environment of mutual distrust, Russia's modernization drive underscores the return to an era of strategic competition where dialogue and restraint are replaced by deterrence and counter-deterrence. Western reactions to Russia's nuclear posture are complex. On one hand, NATO insists that its military buildup is defensive and aimed at protecting member states from potential aggression. The alliance also argues that its support for Ukraine is grounded in the principle of sovereignty and the rejection of territorial conquest by force. On the other hand, Western policymakers are acutely aware of the risks that come with pushing Moscow into a corner. The prospect of miscalculation, accidental escalation, or deliberate use of nuclear weapons remains a central concern in Washington, Brussels, and other capitals. For this reason, discussions about how to maintain credible deterrence while avoiding nuclear catastrophe have gained urgency. Beyond the West, Russia's nuclear modernization carries implications for the broader international system. Countries like China, India, and Iran are watching closely as Moscow redefines its strategic doctrine. For China, which is itself rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal, Russia's moves provide both a model and a warning about the challenges of confronting U.S. military power. For non-nuclear states, Russia's emphasis on nuclear deterrence raises questions about the future of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which rests on the assumption that nuclear powers will eventually move toward disarmament. Instead, the reality is one of rearmament, which could weaken the credibility of global non-proliferation efforts. The humanitarian dimension of this development is also worth noting. Nuclear weapons, by their very nature, pose risks not only to military targets but to civilian populations and the environment. The modernization of arsenals may make them more accurate, survivable, or harder to intercept, but it does not eliminate the catastrophic consequences of their use. International organizations and advocacy groups warn that renewed emphasis on nuclear arms undermines decades of progress in promoting disarmament and arms control. From their perspective, Russia's announcement signals a dangerous backsliding into Cold War-style thinking, where security is equated with the threat of mutual destruction. At the same time, some analysts argue that Russia's modernization plans are not entirely new but rather a continuation of long-term programs that began years ago. They point out that the United States and other nuclear powers are also upgrading their arsenals, with Washington investing in new ballistic missile submarines, stealth bombers, and missile defense systems. In this sense, Moscow's announcement can be seen as part of a global trend rather than an isolated escalation. Nevertheless, the rhetorical framing of colossal threats adds a sharper political edge that intensifies the sense of crisis. For ordinary Russians, the emphasis on nuclear weapons reflects the broader militarization of society under current leadership. State media frequently highlight Russia's advanced weapons systems as symbols of national pride and resilience. Nuclear modernization fits neatly into this narrative, reinforcing the idea that Russia is a great power capable of standing up to the West. However, the focus on weapons also comes at a cost, diverting resources from social and economic development at a time when sanctions and war have already strained the economy. Critics argue that this reliance on military strength reveals the limits of Russia's soft power and diplomatic influence. For Western publics, the prospect of renewed nuclear competition brings back anxieties that many thought were confined to the past. The memory of Cold War drills, nuclear shelters, and near